Hello, gamers. Welcome back to the Game Shop's basement, where we continue to cobble together more Loft gaming for you. LOFT, largest online fantasy tabletop ever. So we are going to address species or race and class combinations and stuff like that today. So yesterday we went into, on one of our videos yesterday, level limits. Yeah, we're not doing level limits. All races or species and classes can get to level 36, just the same. So this means that on page 86 of Old School Essentials Player's Tome, there's some extra stat bonuses and things for humans, those poor blind humans that don't have infravision, so that humans have something, because in the original 1E or box set version of our favorite game, the special thing humans were supposed to have was that humans didn't have level limits. And so what were called demi-humans or humanoids, they had level caps. We're not going to level cap anyone, and that is an option of how to play. And so in order to accommodate that option, on page 86, there's some extra stuff for humans. Now, in terms of what they call race-class combinations, first of all, there's been some controversy lately in the world of our favorite game about the word race, and there are some versions of our game, such as Pathfinder and some other versions, that they prefer to use the word ancestry now instead of race. All the way back to the 1980s, us really nerdy kids, we used the word species, because we were science nerds. And we knew about chromosomes and DNA. And, chromosomes and DNA may not be known in most worlds of our favorite game. Although, I do have a degree in biochemistry, not that I necessarily use it a whole lot directly, doing what I do in my life now. But as a biochemist, as someone with a biochemistry degree who's actually worked in the field of biochemistry, I do appreciate the world of Ravnica. That's not our world for Loft. You could travel there for a bit, I suppose. But I do appreciate Ravnica because the Simic biomancers actually know what DNA is. They actually gene splice. So in a world like our main world for Loft, Mystara, there are alchemists who create life or blend life or cross species or whatever, and they're doing it in a purely fantasy magic sort of way with alchemy. But in Ravnica, the Simic biomancers actually do it with science. Like, they actually, in the theater of the mind, in my mind, they're actually wearing lab coats and stuff. But so the thing is, in most worlds of our favorite game, the science there isn't quite necessarily to the level where you would talk about species and DNA and stuff, except Ravnica. But as nerds, we talked about dwarves, elves, so on and so forth as species, because we're just nerds that way. But so whatever. But the point we're getting at for today's little bit of Loft update is that unlike the original 1E and box set version of our game, we're not restricting what used to be called race class combinations, what I kind of think of as species class combinations. For example, dwarves are not, rangers are not listed as something that dwarves can be. Paladins are not listed as something that elves can be. Well, we're allowing that. I mean, there's no reason not to. So when the third edition of our favorite game came along, that's when the people who were in control of the game at the time, they kind of lifted that restriction, and they started deciding that, everybody could be everything, just about. I mean, there might be a few exceptions somewhere, but for the most part, there's no reason why a dwarf couldn't be a ranger. There's no reason why an elf couldn't be a paladin, and so on. That for a long time, monks were humans only. And if you look at how people play our favorite game now, there's even halfling monks. I mean, it's a fantasy. I mean, do I really think halflings would be doing the same kind of martial arts as other monks? Again, I'm a nerd, so I don't think so. They'd be doing different types of moves and stuff. But yeah, so in the Loft project, we're not restricting race class combinations or species class combinations. Um, I can't say that there would never be one that we wouldn't allow. There might be, but very rarely. I can't even think of one off the top of my head. I just want to hold that out in reserve as a caveat. Is one day there might be one that doesn't make sense. But if we do decide that there's one that doesn't make sense, I promise we're going to have a good reason for it. So the sort of the arbitrary ones from 1E and box set type of our favorite game, we're just not going to do that. And Old School Essentials, allows for these options. That's why on page 86 there's some extra stuff for humans if you want to exercise the option of not having level caps for demi-humans and humanoids. So, for instance, a few years ago, I got invited to a game where they were starting at first level, and I'm like, oh my goodness. At that point, I've been playing almost 40 years. Now I've been playing for 41 years. Back then, I'd played almost 40 years, like 38 or something, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the last thing I want to do is start a new character at first level. I've been playing for almost 4 decades, and but it was absolutely required for that game, and I wanted to be in that game. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because by that time I'd played everything that I wanted to play. If there's something in this game I haven't played, it's because I have no desire to. Everything that I've ever been curious about or wanted to explore, I've played by now. Okay, I've been playing for 41 years at this point. So, I thought, well, I'll just go back to my roots and I'll play an elf. Because that's the big thing that I've always liked in the game the most. And I thought, back in my day, in the first and second edition days, they didn't let elves be paladins. So I made an elf paladin. Some of you might have heard of Sir Keebler Cookiesmith and some of the stories about his exploits and the people that he's adventured with, some of the parties that he's been with. But and he's probably my favorite character of my adult gaming life. I have a favorite character of my kid gaming life when I was a teenager and stuff, but the character I've enjoyed the most as an adult is probably that elf paladin, and that wasn't a combination that was allowed back then. So we are definitely in the LOFT project. We're pretty loosey-goosey on combining species and character class. So there are a lot of major announcements coming forward. Lots happening really, really fast. It is amazing just how much support is coming in for the LOFT project in terms of just interest, emotional support, comments on the internet, some funds. Funds are important. We like funds. It's amazing. So there's a lot of stuff coming. But I did want to make sure that people knew, because you can't just glance at the OSE book and necessarily see that at a glance that we're just letting, dwarves be rangers and halflings be monks and elves be paladins. So I wanted to get that clear that there are going to be very few. There are very few, and going forward, there's going to be very few species class restrictions. So check things out in the doobly-doo below, and you can play with us now. We are expanding. Right now, you can play with me, and probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have tables open with other DMs too. So, in the meantime, I'll see you around the gaming table.